Hey everyone and welcome. Today we'll be running you through gameplay from the world's best solo queue player Dopa playing in top Korean Challenger. While Dopa's strategies are uniquely complex and difficult to apply, after watching today's guide you'll increase your understanding of minion waves alongside a ton of helpful tips to play around your own jungler regardless of what champion you play. Let's get into today's matchup. Dopa is playing Tia versus an oppressive laner Aurelia. For damage, Aurelia has more at all stages but loses in range, so you can take a lot of return fire as she backs off from trading. For wave clear, TF wins during lane phase, but it can even out if Aurelia buys Tiamat, which could happen later in the lane after level 7. Junglers in this game are Kindred for Dopa and Taliyah for Aurelia. Knowing this, Dopa's game plan is going to be Mission 1, freeze the lane. By freezing the lane, he can stay safe, look for harass, and avoid getting ganked or all-in early, and Aurelia will struggle to break a freeze this early on as well. Mission 2, get a health lead. While freezing, Dopa can look for harass with his range lead, and even set up potential ganks with his yellow card. Mission 3, gain lane priority and roam. If Dopa gains a lead early with his range and wave control advantages, he will look to start shoving the wave and roaming with ultimate. With that said, let's get into the gameplay. Starting off, we see Dopa go ahead and get the standard ward at the pixel brush, but does so at an interestingly late timestamp of 1 minute and 30 seconds. Why? Well, because his plan is to freeze, he doesn't need to be in lane right now. By doing it this late, he doesn't lose anything and there's no risk of getting cheesed or his ward dying instantly to an Urgot or something. He gets into lane and grabs his last hits while getting to work with harassing Aurelia for mission 2. Dopa also has the wave pushing towards him right away, so he will be playing to let it push into a freeze for mission 1. Worth noting that he's playing Grasp into Aurelia, which is a recommended must versus melee assassins that you can auto harass. Anyway, Dopa does some pretty standard thinning on the wave with his AoE to ensure that he doesn't get shoved in and can easily land his freeze. As we can see, Kindred heads over and Dopa patiently plays back until Kindred gets closer and until Aurelia moves forward for this last hit. He draws the yellow and they go in, resulting in a super easy flash pause. Rolling it back, this was all super smooth from Dopa and he didn't show his hand with the gank until it was way too late for Aurelia to respond, and most players just rush in when the jungler is about to gank, waving the red flag, forcing them to immediately run away. With this gank, it's really easy to set up on mission 2, and now you as the viewer may instantly be thinking that you need jungle help to get your leads, and that your jungler never arrives, etc. When we cover players like Dopa, Faker and Rookie, they receive a ton of jungle focus and for good reason. They have their waves set up at the right time to receive ganks. While challenger junglers can easily recognize this as a sweet gank timing, if you plan to set up a freeze yourself, just communicate this ahead of time with your jungler and more often than not you should see results. We'll see more examples of Dopa pushing and freezing to synergize with his jungler as we move forward in this guide. Dopa stays in lane to continue the freeze and Aurelia is getting really screwed here as she walks around back in lane because her wave is still pushing for mission 1, so she's already losing minions and experience. Turns out Aurelia starts inting with a very questionable re-engage onto Kindred, which results in a full-on chase down. Every single TF ever flashes here for the stun onto Aurelia, but Dopa doesn't. Can you tell why? Alright, so Dopa knows that he doesn't need to flash to get this kill quickly for two main reasons. 1. Aurelia's wave is still slow pushing, denying her CS and experience while Dopa loses next to nothing. 2. Dopa's bot lane has priority, so they can simply move, with a ton of pings, to land this kill, and Aurelia just cannot escape. Factoring in these things while playing is pretty insane and reinforces the importance of focusing on lane priorities while roaming and the state of minion waves in the lane that you're actually leaving. If Dopa's wave was the one pushing into Aurelia, it would be worth flashing for the quick kill to get back into lane without losing too much experience. Anyway, he keeps chasing and eventually lets Aurelia die to Kindred and returns to collect a massive wave in the mid lane. We now see the result of Aurelia's wave slow pushing from earlier. Dopa gets to soak in all of these minions while Aurelia has been denied around 3 minion waves, which is obviously a huge deal. However, getting a lead is one thing and snowballing it is another. Dopa needs to decide how to best push this lead with two clear options. he can thin the wave and continue to freeze, or he can let the wave hit the tower and bounce it back towards Aurelia and push. What would you do in this position? Let's look at the first option. If he sets up a freeze again, then the three main benefits are: 1. He can continue harassing Aurelia, 2. He can stay safe from any ganks, and 3. Potentially set up another gank with Kindred. Now let's take a look at the second option, letting the wave bounce back towards Aurelia. The benefits are that he will gain lane priority, freeing him up to respond to things around the map. He will be able to harass Aurelia when the wave is under her tower, and lastly, he also has the option to both ward or recall off of the push. So that was a breakdown of the two, and they're actually great options, but for their own unique reasons. By freezing, you're playing for an isolated mid lane snowball by denying CS and landing ganks. This is a solid and super consistent way to push your lead. By bouncing the wave and pushing, you're making a more team-focused decision, because lane priority leaves you with a great chance to impact the map in a bunch of ways, but comes with more risk for more options. He chooses to go with the second option, letting the wave crash into tower instead of freezing. This plays into mission 3, gaining lane priority, which we'll see shortly. In the meantime, he damages minions as he sees necessary to prep their health bars so that he can last hit under tower, maximizing his CS, but inevitably misses some. He now transitions into focusing on just last hitting to get a slow push towards the enemy tower. This will secure a large minion advantage to protect him while he's pushed forward. Wait, did any of you catch that? Let's go back a few seconds. You can actually see the plant Scryer's Bloom being activated both on the minimap and in lane. This notifies Dopa that the enemy jungler is on the top side of mid lane, very close to him. Dopa responds correctly by hugging the bottom portion of the lane, staying as far away as possible from the enemy jungler. If Taliyah does come, he can simply retreat to his own jungler. He also has all of his summoner spells up, and he's aware that his bot lane still has priority, which means that no surprise gank from the enemy support is possible, and that's often overlooked. This is what is referred to as calculated aggression. Now with the wave crashing into Aurelia's tower, he has complete lane priority and has accomplished mission 3. He sees Kindred on the map moving in to invade, and he positions himself towards that side of the map while aggressively pinning Aurelia down. Kindred runs into Taliyah and Dopa immediately moves towards them, only running back to lane once Taliyah has been scared away. He continues pinning down Aurelia and executing on mission 3, which is what is allowing Kindred to play so aggressive in a pretty difficult matchup. Dopa sees a fight occurring between Kindred and Taliyah and once again immediately responds. Take note that since his established lane priority, he's beating Aurelia to this fight. Because of this, he's able to not only save Kindred, but also help secure a kill onto Pyke. He walks back to lane, and I want you to take note of how the minion wave is pushing into him. This is the same concept that we covered earlier on. When Aurelia's minions are pushing towards Twisted Fate, they're actually killing off minions at a faster rate. This results in a big wave for Dopa to pick up once he gets back into lane. So if we jump back to the present time, we can see that even though that TF and Aurelia responded to the fight in the river, that Aurelia actually lost more gold and experience because of this same concept. However, there is a price to pay for this. Now Aurelia has a big wave built up, she will brute force a recall by hard shoving the wave. She can absorb the damage that Twisted Fate does since she's planning to recall off this anyway. One interesting thing to note is that Aurelia shoved this wave into recalling right before an upcoming siege minion wave. This is really smart from the Aurelia, and we'll see why in a moment. Dopa immediately starts hard shoving the next wave since he now wants to set up a recall, spending all the gold that he has and refill on potions. Now take note of how there's 2 melee minions, a siege minion and 3 casters heading into Aurelia's tower. A siege minion will tank up to 8 tower hits, so this extra time that the siege minion buys will allow Aurelia to get back to lane while losing the minimum amount of minions possible to the tower. This easy to apply technique Aurelia is using is great to get back into this game with. Twisted Fate arrives back in lane and Aurelia has pushed the wave into his tower. Unfortunately, Kindred is playing a bit too aggressive given that Aurelia has priority on mid. Dopa hits level 6 and starts reacting to the skirmish in the river. They back off, Dopa clears a ward and returns to lane. Wait a second, the lane is frozen for Dopa again. How did he do it? If we go back, right to the fight in the river, we can see that Dopa consciously chose to pull 4 minions as he reacts. This is how he set up a freeze in this lane. He's now going back to mission 1 with this freeze, which is exactly what he wants while Aurelia is about to hit 6 and could easily run him down in the lane with ultimate if he went for mission 3. He also just cleared vision, leaving Kindred with a clear path for a potential gank. At this point, Dopa has Aurelia in a pretty hopeless position, especially with no flash. She either gets zoned completely from last hits or goes in for last hits and risk being ganked, which are both just terrible options. With this checkmate position for Twisted Fate, the only real way for Aurelia to break free would be if Talia comes to lane and helps reset the wave by pushing. Dopa sells the upcoming gank really well. He walks back slightly to last hit a minion, rather than aggressively running at Aurelia too early and scaring her off. It's important to note that the reason why this gank works so great is because of the angles that they have on Aurelia. Since Aurelia has no flash, Kindred is cutting off the center of the lane, which leaves the only escape route to the river, but Dopa is cutting off that angle. This results in them securing the kill on Aurelia, completing mission 2 and transitioning back into mission 3 once again to get lane priority. If that wasn't enough, Kindred catches Talia and Dopa with this newfound lane priority, follows it up with this ultimate for a kill. To recap, Dopa came into this lane knowing that he wanted to set up a freeze immediately while placing a super efficient ward to match his game plan. He executed a perfect balance between harass, CSing and thinging the wave, leaving his lane a prime target for Kindred's first gank. With a free flash and continued thinning, Aurelia gifted her body to accelerate Dopa's lead, where with great awareness he was able to hold onto his own flash and deny 3 waves in the process with his spare time. He converted this into a slow push into the Aurelia, where he was able to use lane priority to roam and help his team in a nearby fight. After both mid laners shoved and recalled, Dopa came back to lane and showed great foresight by pulling 4 minions to set up a dominating freeze. This put Dopa in a checkmate position that Kindred swiftly took advantage of, making short work of Aurelia in the process. If that wasn't enough, it was followed up by a TF ultimate onto Talia, the final nail in the coffin and securing the lead the enemy team could not come back from.